Hey, Kathy. Hi, Amy.
Hi.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to our November provider meeting. We are just letting everyone in right now. We will get started here in just a few seconds. Right, I think our last few right now are joining us, so we will get started. We welcome you to our November Butler County provider meeting. We are glad that you're here joining us via Zoom. This is our last meeting of 2024. It is hard to believe that this year is winding down. We have a lot of important things to share with you today. Just want to remind you as you are in the meeting today, if you would mind staying on mute. We will have time for questions throughout the meeting, so you will be invited if you have a question to unmute at that time. Feel free to do that. We also have a chat box that you are welcome to drop questions in or comments in as the meeting happens. I forgot to introduce myself. I'm Kathy Borders in Provider Relations, and also Amy Winkler is here. She will be handling our chat box for the most part. So to get started, we have a couple of visitors with us today that will be starting our meeting for us. We first have Michelle Truitt, who is one of our nurses here at Butler County. She has an update for us, information to share. And then we also have Angie Blake here from DODD. She will be sharing with us a DSP and provider support presentation after Michelle, and then I will be providing some updates after them. So I will turn it over to Michelle.
Hi. I will never get used to these meetings. If I'm not looking, it's because I can't look at myself. I cannot look at myself while I'm talking. So if I'm looking this way, it's because I've got to look at another computer because I just can't stand looking at myself while I'm talking. But I won't take much of your time this morning. I just asked Kathy if I could pop in the meeting today to just go over just a quick topic that we've been noticing in our department. Like she said, I work in the provider relations department, but I also work closely with the MUIs, so with our IAs. And one things that we've been noticing more and more is challenges with 911 calls. So I thought maybe I would pop on the call here today and just kind of go over some of those challenges so that some of our providers can maybe start offering some trainings and assistance to their staff with these 911 calls. So I'm going to go over some of the issues that we're seeing. So with 911 calls, we understand that it's a challenging time. Obviously, if they're going to call 911, they're in a panic. It's usually a crisis. It's an emergency situation. We are going to panic. That's all normal. But what we're finding is that when we go back and we listen to these 911 calls, a lot of times staff really aren't aware of where they're at. They know where they're at, but there's always the questions. They're always going to ask, the dispatcher is going to ask, where's the location of your emergency? And what is the emergency? And oftentimes this is where our staff are getting like kind of boogered up. Like they panic or they don't know the address. They're not sure where they're at. So I'm coming to you all and I'm just asking, and these are just things we don't think about when we're going through orientation maybe, or when we're going through trainings. I don't know if you sit down with your staff once a week, once a month, quarterly, but this would be a great opportunity or a great small session training to have with your folks. Do mock calls, practice with your staff with 911 calls. Maybe create an emergency sheet that's readily available in the home next to the telephone. I know most people do have face sheets in their homes with like all that emergency information, but it's tucked away in a binder somewhere that they have to dig for. We don't want that. We want something that's readily available for them to have access to at any moment's notice. So they need to know where their address is. They need to know, obviously, what's going on to be able to effectively be able to relay that information to the dispatcher. Because in an emergency situation, all this is doing is delaying care. It's delaying that response. So those are the big things that we need to be informing our staff. And we understand turnover is big. So oftentimes there's somebody new in the house that has no clue where they're at. I mean, let's be honest. So just having that information is just so, so valuable. It happens and it's scary. Let me tell you, listening to those 911 calls and staff are panicking and their first question is, what's the location of your emergency? And staff are like, oh, I don't know. It's panic. So I'm pleading to you today to please go back to your staff and think about those kinds of things when you're doing your trainings. The other thing that I want to bring up too is that we live in a great world. It's wonderful. We're cultural diverse. But what comes with that often is we see that sometimes language is a barrier. Folks do have language as barriers. They're not, English isn't often people's primary language. And so we need to consider that as well with our trainings. And oftentimes we do see also in these 911 calls that folks that don't have English as a primary language don't understand the questions that's being asked of them. So again, more reason to do those mock calls, those practice calls so that they understand the three primary questions that are going to be asked: the location of your emergency, the name of the individual, and what is going on. They need to be able to communicate those things in a way that can be presented to the dispatcher and we can get that emergency people there right away. Okay. I am happy to help. I can help design tools for you. I can provide guidance. You can call me. I'm here for your resource. I'm here to answer questions. I just felt like it has happened more than once. And I felt like this would be a good start to pop in here and just kind of bring it to your attention. And we'll just move forward with it and hope that it gets better out there. But does anybody have any questions for me? I don't want to take up too much of your time. I know you got a busy schedule, but that's really what I wanted to come on and
I
say.
do. I actually do have a question, and you bring up
Awesome.
something incredible, and and I thank you for this. And this is something that I've always ponder on in case of an emergency. What do you do? And you said like leave the info by your phone. Well, a lot of people don't use landline now. A lot
Sure,
of people
sure.
have cell phones. So where do you think would be the in advice? What is your advice as far as where to, where can we put that information
I've
that
seen a lot of crazy places. So when I did, and this is probably the craziest place, but it was a really cool place. So when I
okay.
did residential and like elderly population, when I would go out to their assisted living homes, their residential homes, it was a saying that all of their emergency stuff was in their freezer. We put it in a baggie. I know it's crazy, but it stayed safe there because
Okay.
think about it, all the junk mail, all the junk papers that come into your house, you toss it, it gets thrown away. We would slide it in a Ziploc bag and it's stuck in the freezer, like right there in the, in the door, we open the freezer. And we had a little magnet that was like a red magnet that said something like emergency in here or something. I don't remember what it said, but it stuck. It was a magnet that was on the freezer. And so whenever I would go out for an emergency call, I knew my first place to go was that freezer. Like that would have all the information I needed on this patient.
Okay. I'm
Now
so
that's
sorry.
crazy. That's probably not something you're going to do, but I'm just saying you can come up with something, similar to where across the board, I don't know if, are you an agency like
I'm
supervisor?
an IP. I am an IP. But okay, when you say on a freezer, you're not talking about inside the
No,
freezer,
I'm
right?
talking about inside the freezer.
Inside. Okay. Well,
We put it
that's
inside the freezer. And I know that sounds crazy, but it worked. It absolutely worked. And it was just something that we did across the board. And it was something that all of our staff was aware of. And, emergency people, we knew that's where it was. And so it worked. So yes, you need to come up, but whatever you come up with needs to be consistent across the board with all the homes, I feel like, because you do have staff going in and out of multiple places and they need to have that consistency. So if it's a laminated sheet that you have Velcro to the, to the wall in the kitchen or, on the front door, however you want to do that. But just, I mean, it doesn't have to have everything about them on it. We don't want to, put out all their
right.
information, but you need to know where they're at. Like staff need to know where they're at. An address needs to be in the house, readily available, so that when they call 911, they can say, here, I'm at 20 Rose Court,
Gotcha. Okay. Gotcha. So the three things that you brought up that is must, that you see that a lot of people trip up on is the location. And that's huge. It sounds like the individual and what is currently happening. Is that
Right,
right?
right.
Gotcha. Hey, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
No problem. No problem. Thanks for asking. I guess before I hop off, if there's no other questions, I'll just let everybody know that for CPR, we're kind of winding down to the end of the year. I've got my last and final class is full for the remainder of the year. So I am registering for my first class of 2025, which will start December 18th and it will close out January 6th. So yeah, 2024 is over is over. But so if you're getting questions about CPR, you can feel free to relay that to folks that we don't have any more openings for the rest of 2024 for CPR. All right. That's all I have. Happy Thanksgiving and happy Merry Christmas to everybody.
Happy Thanksgiving. Merry Christmas to you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Michelle. I will include your email address in our meeting agenda notes so that if you do have other questions or need more information, you can reach out to Michelle.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
All right, awesome. Okay, well, we now will hear from Angie Blake from DODD.
Hi, everyone. My name's Angie Blake, and I am the newest DSP and provider support specialist at DODD. Our department is small but mighty, and our role is to help support providers, DSPs, and county boards. So we provide technical assistance, we provide rule guidance if you need it, answer a multitude of questions about renewals, certifications, those types of things. And one of the things that my experience, I had worked at Wood County Board of DD in Bowling Green for almost 24 years. And had been an SSA, had been a DSP, had worked in the shuttle department, and then had spent probably about 8 years in provider certification. And I still feel like I'm learning stuff every day. I feel like that's something that we, constantly are learning about providers and what they need. So I asked if I could give a quick tour of some of the provider resources that are available on the website. So is it okay if I share my screen now, Kathy?
That'd be great.
Okay. Oh, before I do that though, I just want to piggyback on the nursing about CPR or about calling 911. So as a CPR instructor as well, I always tell people, you know what, I know how to get to my best friend's house, but I don't know her address right away if there was an emergency. Or if there's an emergency at my own house, would my kids or my kids' friends know what our address is? Type of thing, so that having a location where your address is, if it's inside the cabinet cupboard, or teaching people, this could be an outcome for independent living of knowing your address, knowing where you can find it in your house, because it is so important. So, yeah, because the individual might have to call 911 too if they're home alone. So that's a very important thing. So, okay, now I'll share my screen. Okay, can you see my screen now?
Yes.
Okay, great. Okay, so when you go to DODD's website, if you go to supporting providers, there is a ton of information and resources. But the key is knowing how to find it and where it might live. So I always start off with the PNM resources, which you all know can be super easy or it can be super complicated. It just depends on the day that you go into PNM. But this box here is an actual link to all the PNM resources. So if you have questions about, oh, I'm renewing my application, you can click on this and it gives you a step-by-step guide on how you will go through the process of renewing your application. So these are great resources. They also cover, another hot topic is voluntary withdrawal of your DODD certification, adding a service. That's always a big one. And then also changing your DOO or changing your demographics. Those are also pretty popular ones. So, but all these resources have step-by-step guides on how to accomplish that. Now, if you do encounter a hiccup along the way, let's say you're adding competency-based longevity add-on rate. And you're going through, you're going great, and you get to step 5, and this box is not here for DODD enrollment. That's when you have to call PNM because until this, if there's a missing piece here, that's a PNM issue, which is the Department of Medicaid. Now, once you get to here, then you're getting into the DODD application. Once you get to this part, now you're in PSM. Lots of acronyms, it's alphabet soup. But if you have questions though, these guides are great, but you also have Kathy and Amy as a support at your county board to help you with anything. Or you can reach out to myself. Kathy can include my contact information in the meeting minutes. So that was the first one, is the PNM training and links are all right here in this box. So that's a good one to check out. The next one is DSP and provider resources. On the left-hand side, you open this up and there are a ton of resources for direct support professionals and providers. So starting with what is a DSP, but there's also resources to get connected with DSP organizations. So you can go to the Ohio Alliance of Disabilities. So they have a ton of resources here for DSPs. So make sure to share that. If you're an independent provider, check this out or share it with your DSPs. And then there's also the National Alliance as well. So it's important to check out these resources for direct support professionals. There's training resources there. And then for agency providers, there are recruitment tools available. So there's positions that are open. There's information about how to recruit DSPs. And then there's also videos that you can use on DODD's YouTube channel for recruiting DSPs. And then another one that I just learned about, and maybe you already know, for recruiting DSPs is the DSP calling. Starting your career as a DSP, it'll show you where there are openings for different agencies by putting in your zip code. But that's a different website. So let me go back. There we go. Okay, so now we move on to training. So the DSP and provider support team has been putting together a series of trainings specifically for DSPs in the DSP community. So these trainings are about an hour long, and they're all really good materials. But they answer a lot of those questions that you might get from a DSP, or if you're an independent provider, some that you might have, like, where do I fit in? What's my voice in the person-centered planning process? Those are great learning videos. And then there's PowerPoints are also down here as well. So, and we'll be having more videos coming out and trainings throughout 2025. Our next one is on December 16th at, I believe, 9 a.m. And that one will be on connecting with the community inclusion for everyone. So that's a great one as well to help DSPs help people be engaged. And then there's the Wellness Project, which you cannot give to others if your bucket is not full. So you have to take care of yourself, your mental health, your physical health. So this Wellness Project website is great for DSPs. It has a ton of resources, YouTube videos, playlists, cooking videos. And then there's also a Padlet with a ton more resources. Let's see if it works today. Oh, it does. So there's also, grief, sadness, and loss. We need that as, you're working with people. If somebody passes away, those are great resources. But then there's also resources for fathers being involved in services, first responders, mental health resources, natural department resources, and the list goes on and on of available resources for DSPs. So it's helping get DSPs connected with these resources that they need. And then we have the regional teams map. So for Butler County, you can go on your hover over Butler County, and it will show you all the team members that are available to assist if you have an issue. We do suggest, though, that you use Kathy and Amy. They're great resources. So reach out to them first, and then reach out to other team members as needed. Okay, so that is the DSP and provider resources under our teams tab. Now I have one more place to show you that there's resources is under the compliance tab. So the compliance team has also a map of all the managers that you can use to contact them if you would like, but there's also provider resources over on this left-hand column with a ton of information. So these trainings all specifically relate to compliance. So there's, in October, it was the HCBS settings rule. So there's handouts for that. September was the MUI rule for providers. Charting the life course. Background checks, those are always important. Understanding personal funds. So as you go through, you can see the different trainings that are available, but these all go back to how they relate to compliance. So these are both good for DSPs as independent providers, frontline supervisors, DOOs. But I also like to highlight working in provider certification. This was the January trainings. It's usually January or February. They put out the top citations from the previous year. It's almost every year they do this training. It's a great training and helps you prepare better for if you have an upcoming compliance review. to ensure that you're meeting all those top citation areas. And they cover both independent and agency providers' top citations. So it's a good one to attend. So watch for that. And then we go back to provider resources. There's also the provider compliance tools and required documentation lists. So the most current ones you can always find here under this tab. And I'm going to be honest, I was really excited about finding this next tab. It's more provider resources. You pop it open and there are a ton of resources here. From like documentation templates for the most popular services that are provided. If you go back, let's see. Oh, did it take me? Nope, it didn't take me back. Okay, back to provider resources. So there are a ton of resources here available for providers that the compliance team has created that are all specifically for you. We are working on finding better ways that these things can be easier found on the website. But I just wanted to share that these are here if you want to look through them, and they're a great resource for DSPs. And so I'm going to stop sharing. Does anybody have any questions? No? So I would just want to cover, so DODD My Learning will be shutting down on December 30th and reopening on January 2nd with the 2025 My Learning options. The training team is super excited that now you will be able to search direct support professional or provider, and all the trainings that apply to providers will come up when you search in My Learning.
I do have a question actually about My Learning, and thank you so much for bringing this up. So I am an IP and also a DSP, okay? So I have been, and I didn't think about this. This just popped up to my head, but I have been doing my, what do you call that? The 8 hours, that long thing that you do every year. Well, I've been doing that as a DSP instead of an IP. Does that can that also count towards an IP? That training that I just took as a DSP, can that apply to a as an IP?
Yes. So there is some caveat to it.
Oh, okay.
So if you are an agency DSP and you are also an IP and you take your agency DSP training, it will cover the UI MUI requirements for the agency, but you will want to make sure that you know and understand the UI MUI requirements for an independent provider. That's probably that is the difference between the two trainings, is that the independent provider training is very specific for independence in the UI MUI, while the agencies DSPs have to have agency-specific training on UI and MUI.
And that is the only difference. Is that correct?
Yes.
So that means I can continue taking the I guess
through your employer.
Right.
Yes.
Right. And then as an IP, I can just take it individually, the UI MUI as an IP.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes. And I would strongly, and I recommend this for everyone, for all DSPs and IPs, is that you have your training certificates. So that way, if anything happens in the system, you have proof that you did complete it. So you either have it saved somewhere on a computer or you have a printed copy. Because
Which
I've
one?
been
I'm so sorry.
you
Which training are you talking about?
all your trainings.
As
Make
in,
Yes, so make
okay.
sure you're not just leaving it to save in My Learning
Mm-hmm.
or in Relias if you're using Relias or whatever your company's using. Make sure you have your own certificates saved or printed.
Okay.
So
Okay.
don't leave it up for them to be saved in a different software program and expect them to always be there.
Gotcha. Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
So that means, okay. So I'm just gonna have to do a training for UI, MUI in
Yes,
as an IP, and I'm not gonna worry about the 8 hours, right?
correct.
Okay,
Correct,
awesome.
because
Thank
you
you so
already
much.
have that as an agency DSP.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Yep. Any other questions? And I've met with Butler County and several of the other counties in Region 3. If you're an agency provider and would like to show off your services that you provide to individuals, I would love to come out and meet with you and have a tour of where you provide services or hear about the awesome things that you're doing every day. So I'll put my information in the chat. It looks like there may have been one question.
Yeah, someone was asking for that website that you were just showing us, so we'll drop that in
Yes.
the chat as well and include that
Yep.
in our meeting minutes for you to have as well.
Okay, well, thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, Angie, for coming. We really appreciate it. That was helpful. I learned, I didn't realize all those great resources were in all those places, so that was super helpful for me too. Appreciate you. We will again have her contact information for you. So if you think of things you would like to ask her about, or in the future as things come up, you'll be able to contact her with that. All right, awesome. Well, I am going to share my screen now to give you some updates. We try to make sure you have all the important information that is shared out through Memo Monday from DODD, anything that is pertinent to right now. So first wanted to start out with our community connection updates. They're not able to be here today. They just asked me to mention a couple of things. First off is they are currently looking for DSP nominations. If you know a DSP that's serving in Butler County that deserves to be recognized for their hard work and dedication, we would love if you would nominate them there on our website. The link is there, but you can get to that too from just directly from our website. We would love to have that, and that's ongoing. So if you don't have someone in mind right now, but you think of someone down the line, this is an ongoing recognition process. So we would love to have those throughout the year. Also, they have a sensory-friendly movie coming up December 12th. Registration is still open for that. Feel free to register with Jenny Mann if you are able to come, bring individuals to come. All right, so wanted to remind you, we talked about this at our last meeting 2 months ago, but just wanted to give an update on this. We in Butler County have launched Britco for providers. There's a lot of questions about what Britco is for some of you that aren't familiar with it. It is basically a platform that we use here in Butler County for all of our information about our individuals and providers. It's where all of our ISPs are put. And so until recently, providers did not have access to ISPs at any given moment. You were emailed those or sent those by our county. But now if you create your login, which you have access to do that, if you are currently serving someone in our county, you can log into Britco at any time to access those ISPs as they're updated, or if you didn't get a copy of it or you've lost your copy, you will be able to access those in live time. And so that's the greatest benefit of logging into Britco as a provider. For agencies, there are some other options, other features available. First off, I want to mention our local billing. So there are a number of agencies who are contracted with Butler County to do local funding. And that is a select few. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, then that means you are not one of those agencies. This does not apply to independent providers. So just with agencies that have that contract, you will now be submitting all local billing in our Britco system beginning for services on January 1st, 2025. There will be training provided for that. We are contacting all those agencies that this impacts to provide that training. Just wanted to make you aware. So after January 1st, local billing will only be done in this Britco system. We have entered all of the agencies that we currently have information on as to who they would like to have be their admin for their agency, but we are missing some agencies who have not responded yet with that information. We are gathering that information with a survey. Amy is going to drop that link in our chat. We'll also include it in our meeting minutes. But if you are an agency provider providing services in our county, we want to give you access to Britco so that you can access your ISPs, do local billing if that applies to you, and then also have access to report modules. But we have to have your admin information. So fill out that survey. If you've already done so, you do not need to do it again. When you complete that survey, we will email you instructions for logging in. So you'll have all the information. You can, of course, always reach out to Amy or I if you need assistance with that. All independent providers who are providing services in our county are automatically registered in Britco, so they can log in, and we provide those instructions at that time. So they're able to log in and view those. If you're logging in and there are no ISPs there, it's most likely because you are not currently authorized to work with anyone in our county. But I wanted to see if anyone has any questions about this before we move on.
Yeah, I do. For you mentioned the agency, so it is a mandatory that agencies utilize Britco. Is that correct?
It is only mandatory for agencies that have local funding contracts. All other agencies and independents, it is optional as a feature for you to utilize if you would find it helpful.
Oh, okay, gotcha. So this is okay. So it's not mandatory, is what you're saying?
Yeah, correct. Thank you for pointing that out. That is a good point. Yeah, for sure, it is not mandatory. It is optional unless
Okay.
you are a local funded agency provider.
Well, there's a lot of stuff to learn here. So thank you so much for your patience. I appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. Of course.
Let me provide a little more clarification on the billing in the system.
Yeah.
So it's going to be agency providers that provide individual employment, adult day supports, vocab, providers that do non-medical transportation, those types of services. We're not billing through the system for any residential services, homemaker personal care, or anything like that through an agency. So it's just the day array and non-medical transportation type services. We will be sending out an email letter along with training, like instructions on how to bill, a video on how to bill, and opportunities to schedule times for trainings. That'll go out to whoever in your agency. If you have a contract with us, does your billing or submits billing to us now, we're going to send it directly to the billing person. And then it starts with any services on 1/1. So the first time you would be entering any billing in the Britco system would be in February, because you're going to bill the month after. So it's for January 1 services being billed in February. starting February.
Awesome. Thanks, Ginger. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Ginger. So that means that all of you that do not have that local contract and providing those specific services with that local contract will continue billing through EMBS, just as you have been in the past. There's nothing changing for you for billing. All right, I'm going to move on. If you think of anything else, feel free to reach out to us or post it in the chat. That would be great. All right, since we are nearing the end of the year, we wanted to give that reminder about our annual training requirement. Every year, all independent providers and DSPs and DOOs must complete annual training. Independent providers and DSPs have 8 hours. I know we talked about that already a little bit, but that runs by calendar year. So it has to be completed anytime during the year, January 1st through December 31st. So if you have not done that in 2024, then you would need to do that by December 31st to be in compliance. The link there is available to complete that training. It's mylearning.dodd.ohio.gov. That is where you can find the full 8-hour curriculum to complete all in one place. Wanted to point out that they will be, and Angie mentioned this, they will be shutting down My Learning on December 31st at 5. So if you are in process of completing training at that time, it will not save what you have done, and you would need to restart in January. It opens on January 2nd at 9 a.m. So you would be starting that training over in 2025. So it's recommended to get that going sooner than later. Wanted to provide you an update. You are now able to submit all billing adjustments, reversals, and voids for claims. There had been a period there of several months where providers were not able to submit those types of claims in EMBS because the system was transitioning to a new platform. That has been completed, or at least this part of it has been corrected, so you're able to do that. They have nicely granted this extension that you are right now able to submit any adjustments, reversals, or voids for claims all the way back to July 1st of 2023. So that is great news. Normally you only have 350 days to submit those types of things. So they have extended that a little bit due to this change of the system. So I encourage you to get in there and do that if you have any adjustments that need made.
Kathy, we had a question in the chat.
Yeah.
So Barbara was asking, does anyone else have issues in My Learning with units that won't progress or get stuck? I've not heard of that. I don't know if anyone else on the line can kind of attest to that. We're happy, Barbara, if you want to reach out separately, we can look into that for you.
Well, it will happen if you are not using Google Chrome. If you're using Safari, like on an iPad, or that may happen, or if there's not a strong internet connection. If it buffers it all, it may just automatically drop you, unfortunately. That can be very frustrating, though. I've had to take My Learning courses a couple times, so I understand the frustration.
Thank you. DODD has released information about some proposed waiver changes that go into effect on January 1st. Those changes include a new NMT service or a rate for competitive integrative employment, a new healthcare assessment service, and then updates to the environmental accessibility adaptations authorizations. So a link is here for those. There are some nice one-pagers that they have published on those. They are also hosting a webinar right after this meeting today at 11 a.m. We're going to drop in that link in the chat in case you do want to hop over and do that. It will be addressing just the non-medical transportation changes, this new proposed rate that's going into effect on January 1st for competitive and integrated employment. Here is the rate charts that they have published. Again, they will explain this more in that webinar today. So I encourage you, and if you're not able to attend, to get onto the website to check this out if this applies to you, if you are providing this service or interested in providing this service. It will change things differently and have to be authorized a little differently in plans. Reminding you that outcome tracking reporting is ongoing. It started back October 1st. If you have not done your reporting yet, I encourage you to do that. You have until March 31st to get that done. This is for adult day and employment providers. They are asking for information about the individuals you served in September of 2024. There are a lot of great tools on their website available if you need assistance in completing that reporting. This is mandatory to complete. Reminding you that we still have caregiver cards available at our office. If you are interested in receiving these, please contact us, reach out to us, let us know. Our email address is there to let us know how many cards you would need. If there are a lot, we ask that you pick them up at the office. We could also mail them to you if that would be helpful. We have created these because we learned from other counties that they were using them to help providers gain access to community outings while providing services. But that card does not guarantee admission to any event or business, but may be helpful for you as an identification resource to allow you to get benefits like admission while you're working. So just let us know if you would like those if you've not received them yet. We have launched provider office hours this year and are going to be continuing that. We encourage you to come see us in person. I know our provider meetings have stayed virtual, but our office hours will be in person. We address frequently asked questions and topics there, and it also gives you as providers an opportunity to connect with one another. We have a short training in each office hour, followed by kind of open Q&A session. We host all sessions at Janet Clemens Center. This year in 2024, they are from 10:30 to 12. We have 2 remaining, November 21st and December 3rd. There's the topics there. We are changing kind of the time a little bit and the dates. They've been typically only on Thursdays. Now we'll be kind of switching between Tuesdays and Thursdays for 2025. So we will send you that schedule. So we will be continuing our documentation and compliance session, but then we are adding a new Q&A session with MUI person there to answer questions. So we will be doing those monthly. We encourage you to attend. DODD is hosting an online webinar regarding medication administration responsibilities. Attend to learn more about safe and accurate medication administration, including medication errors and how to report that related for UIs and MUIs. There is 2 hours of credit available for attending. That is coming up on January 16th, and you will need to register. There is another training being offered by DODD. We wanted to make you aware of. It is on remote supports and assistive technology. This one is actually a recorded training. It's in My Learning. You can search for that in the additional courses, I believe it's called, in My Learning. There are a lot of optional courses there outside of your annual training available that can be very helpful. So this training, actually, there's 4 parts to it. So you could take all 4 parts to learn more about technology and integrating that in providing services. So each of those sessions offers 1.5 hours of CPD credit. OPICA, I don't know, OPICA is offering a free webinar series intended to increase adult day service providers' knowledge and skills in providing dementia-capable services to aging adults with an intellectual disability. So if this applies to you, if you are an adult day service provider, this would be probably very helpful, especially if you have individuals at your day program that are aging. There's 9 different webinars being offered over the next year. They currently have the dates posted for just 2024, but they will be posting the 2025 dates and the topics soon. The link is here to learn more and to register. Last thing we wanted to make you aware of, the last training is by OSU's Nissinger's Center. They are offering in-person clinical support services. They have behavioral and mental health assessments, consultation and training to support the individuals we serve, including helping them safely reach their goals. They also offer, and this is really awesome, crisis prevention and support training for providers, DSPs, and family members. That is in Columbus, but by contacting them, they say they may be able to arrange training at your location. It would just take reaching out to them to find out. So by going to their website, you could get that contact information. There's also the links to register for their posted trainings that they are offering. We are all finished with updates. We wanted to give you our 2025 provider meeting dates. We will be continuing them virtually to allow that flexibility for providers to attend. We will host them every other month. So our first one will be January 15th. We hope you will continue coming. We have just a few minutes left. If you have questions, we would be happy to take any of those now.
Kathy,
Yeah.
I have a question concerning the classes that we need to take as shared living provider. I have to take the guardianship course every year. How many credits or is that or is used for that? I'm getting mixed signals. Some say you get 3 hours for it. Some say 2. Now the certificate that they gave me says 3 hours.
Yeah, so DODD has 2 hours that they require that are mandated you take with them through My Learning. And then the remaining 6 are an optional, you can do different things with that 6 hours as long as it falls within 3 different topic areas. We'll share that form with you that has the 3 areas listed on there. So as long as outside hours fall within one of those 3 categories, you could count any and all of those hours. So I don't know exactly what your guardianship hour training requirements entail, but if those 3 hours fall into one of these 3 categories, they could be counted.
So mine was advocacy and conflict resolution.
Let me just, I'll try here real quick to pull up the, of course, when you're on the spot, it's hard to pull things up quickly. So
yeah, I've got them and I'm
Can I
dropping
help you?
okay, we've got it.
Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead, Amy.
Oh, go ahead, Angie. I was just going to say I'm dropping them. I've got all my in the chat. I'm dropping them here in just a second.
We could even pull it up.
Okay.
I'll pull it from the chat. If I can get the link, I'll try to share
Here,
it.
let me share my screen real quick.
You got it? Okay, perfect. Thank you, Angie.
So, the training for and for DSPs, your annual training is the 2 hours training provided on DoDD My Learning. And oh, it didn't share. There we go. Now you can see it. So it's the 2 hours of training on DoDD's My Learning, or you can use the curriculum outline that DoDD has for provider agencies to create your own training, but you do have to still use the DoDD curriculum for those 2 hours. And then the 6 additional hours for independent providers that's this bullet here, would be that you want to have training relevant to topics related to the person served and components of quality of care, health and safety, and positive behavior supports. And then you also need recognizing and reporting major unusual incidents, that MUI/UI piece, and your health and welfare alerts. So there is a form. Were you able to pop that in the chat? Or I can put the website in the chat that,
Great, thank you.
oh, nope, that's the wrong one. Let me
And
pull this.
Kathy can include it in the meeting minutes too, maybe, if that would be helpful.
Okay. But there is a form that you can fill out, and you just put in the form what area that you believe that the training you attended fits into. So it would have to fit in that that components of quality care. So, advocacy probably would fit in there as a good example. They have some examples here, health and safety, and they have some examples, and then the positive behavior support.
This is pretty interesting. Does Brico also offer some of these trainings? Do you know?
We are not completely familiar with the Britco Pro feature, so there is Britco subscriptions you can purchase as a provider. I have heard there are trainings there, or they organize your trainings. I'm not 100% sure. That would be a question for them. We can try to research it a little more, but that is something outside of us. That is something they would be offering.
Thank you.
So Kathy, if you feel that you have the amount of hours that you need, the training hours each year, but let's say you're 1 or 2 short and you didn't do it by December 31st, what's the consequences for that?
The times when you're asked for proof of your training are at recertification and during a compliance review. In between there, it is up to you to maintain that, especially if you haven't had a compliance review, that could be coming at any time. If you had a compliance review occur and you were asked to show your training and you did not have that and did not get that done in time, that could result in a citation. When you receive a citation as a provider, you are asked to complete a plan of correction. So you would be explain how you will prevent that from happening in the future. You will be getting that training done right away, that kind of thing.
Okay.
Most likely.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. It's a good thing to put an alert in your phone or your calendar, on your paper calendar. We try to remind you here, but get in the habit of maybe doing it at a certain time every year. Unless you're doing it, small 1 hours each throughout the year, but maybe a set of time that you are checking to make sure how many hours you have at a certain time each year. Same with your CPR and first aid. There's no one telling you that is coming up expired, that you just have to figure out a way for you to remember that and monitor that. Great questions. Anybody else have? That's great. Kim from Inspiration Studios answered our question there. If you did not see the chat about Britco, that there is training all in Britco. That's awesome for that. That is, you know, an outside. So when we give you access to Butler County Britco, that part is not included. That is simply giving you access to your ISP's local funding billing and some reports. So features like training or timesheets and things like that are available in a paid Britco subscription. All right, you all. Well, thank you so much for attending our meeting. Amy and I will hang on for just a couple of minutes in case some of you have a couple questions that are more personal and you want to share or ask. But we look forward to seeing you hopefully at one of our office hour meetings. We'd love to see you. Otherwise, we'll see you in January for our next provider meeting.